Now that you've seen formulas for area and formulas for circumference, let's see how comfortable you can be moving around between them. It's important because these are two formulas that the more you get to know them, the less likely you are to confuse which one is for which. Remember, circumference is 2 pi r, area is pi r squared. Okay, so in grade 9 F2 it starts off with some pretty straightforward stuff, even though it's circular, haha, which isn't straight, haha. Alright, circumference of a circle is 2 pi kilometers. What is the radius? Maybe this is a little bit weird in that it's giving us the circumference in terms of pi, but this isn't the first time you've seen that, so you'll be able to handle it. Right? You just got to say to yourself, what's the appropriate formula in this one here? This looks pretty easy. I know that circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. Now that color is not going to be easy to see, but we'll figure this out in a second. Let's change this to much more visible color green. Okay, so circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, and it's giving me the circumference, so let me use that, replace the letter C with the piece of information 2 pi that tells me what the circumference actually is. And if I got to find the radius here, well, I'm just going to divide both sides by 2 pi to get rid of 2 pi on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Actually, let's slow it down just to make sure it's clear what I'm doing. First, I'm going to start by dividing both sides by pi, right? Just in case you're a little concerned about your fractions. I don't want to disorient you with what I was doing. If I divide both sides by pi, that's good because that allows me to cancel out pi here. Cancel out pi here like that with my horrific hand-eye coordination. This guy is canceled like this. So that leaves me with 2 equals 2r. And if 2 equals 2r, again, I'm getting really close to finding out what r is. I just got to divide both sides by 2. Right? If you're saying, well, could I just have divided both sides by 2 and pi at the same time? Yes, you could have. You would have gotten the right answer. But this is nice too, right? So if I divide both sides by 2, on the right side, I'm just left with r. On the left side, I've just got 1. So 1 equals r. That allows me to put in my answer, give the exact answer in simplest form. Number of kilometers is exactly 1 kilometer that represents the radius. So like that one was pretty straightforward. Here, this one's even easier if you know your diameters and your radii, right? Diameter is just twice as long as the radius. So if the diameter is 3 kilometers, I can divide that by 2, and that'll give me my radius, 1.5 kilometers. I could have also written 3 over 2 there if I wanted to. Now here, it's a little bit different. That it's switching from having asked me about circumference to now asking me about area. And I've got a diameter, so I feel like, oh, that even feels like I should do circumference, right? Because diameter times pi just gives me the circumference. But no, I got to get the radius here if I'm doing area. Remember, formula for area is pi r squared. So first, let's get the radius by dividing our diameter in 2. We get a radius of 3. Let's clear this stuff away. We get a radius of 3 centimeters. And if our radius is 3 centimeters, then to get the area, I just take my formula for area, which is area equals pi r squared. And I'm going to replace the r here with 3, because that's what I figured out that it is. So I rewrite my equation. Instead of writing r, I'm going to write 3. And I got to remember order of operations as exponents first. This 2, I know it doesn't look like an exponent. It's meant to be one. If you really want to understand why the BEDMAS says I got to do the squaring first, it is important that I really make clear to you guys that this is an exponent and not times 2. So we got an exponent here. That means I got to do 3 squared first, which is 9. And then 9 times pi is just 9 pi because it's asking me to give an exact answer involving pi. So my area is going to be 9 pi here, and that works as well. Now, what I want to jump to is when I start giving you ones like this one, you know how to do. I'm pretty confident you know that. It's when you start seeing ones like, no, this one's still pretty easy. Let's get it even tougher. The area of a circle, this is it. The area of a circle is 9 pi square meters. What is the circumference? So it gives me the area and it asks me for the circumference. Okay, now, as you're going to see, if you don't already see, this is really not as intimidating it looks, but I just didn't want you to have to face it all alone without me holding your mathematical hand here a little bit. So if the area is 9 pi, right, set out and say to yourself, I know the area is equal to pi r squared. That's my formula for area. And if I know that it's telling me the area is 9 pi, then let me just replace a in this with what I know the area to be, and that is pi, 9 pi, right? So I've got 9 pi equals pi r squared. Let's divide both sides by pi first to get that pi out of there. Divide both sides by pi to get pi out of the equation. And then that leaves me just with 9 equals r squared, because all these pi's cancel out. So I know 9 is equal to r squared, r to the power of 2. And if I want to know what r is, then I'm going to square root both sides, right? I can't quite draw very well today, as you can see. There's a little square root sign. It's my best effort for square root today. And if I square root 9, then I get 3 in my calculator if I didn't know my squares already. And that leaves me with a radius of 3. Now that I know the radius of 3, this problem isn't so intimidating. It's just saying, blah, 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 you've got a radius of 3. What's the circumference? So since I know my other formula, that circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, then I can just say, since I now know that the radius is 3, I can just do a little calculation here, right? Circumference is going to be equal to 2 times pi times 3. And 2 times pi times 3, that's like 2 times 3 times pi. That's 6 pi. My circumference is going to be equal to 6 pi. And I have my answer that I'm able to put in IXL, and then life is good, and I can wander off and chase butterflies. Submit. Hooray, correct. Okay, so that's pretty much as tough as you're going to get. You might get area and it asks you for circumference. You might get circumference and it asks you for area. So as long as you know how to go back between those by using both formulas, you should be in good shape.